Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that your country no longer exists as you knew it. Your neighbors have become your enemies. Families are breaking apart, and even brothers are preparing to fight each other on opposite sides of a battlefield. Over the next 4 years, more than 620,000 people will lose their lives in the deadliest war in American history. This wasn't World War I or World War II. It was Americans fighting Americans. The American Civil War was far more than a military conflict. It was a battle over freedom, slavery, political power, and the future of an entire nation. It would end slavery, reshape the United States, and forever change the course of world history. But how did America become so divided that it was willing to destroy itself? This is the complete story of the American Civil War. Part 1. America before the war. To understand the Civil War, we first need to understand what America looked like before 1861. By the middle of the 19th century, the United States was growing rapidly. New states were joining the Union, cities were expanding, and the economy was booming. However, beneath this progress, a serious conflict was developing between the northern and southern states. The northern states had become centers of industry. Large factories produced machinery, textiles, and manufactured goods. Railroads connected major cities, and millions of immigrants came to the north looking for work. The South was completely different. Its economy depended on agriculture, especially cotton. Massive plantations stretched across the countryside, and millions of enslaved African Americans were forced to work without pay. Cotton became one of the world's most valuable products, earning the nickname King Cotton. Southern plantation owners grew extremely wealthy and believed slavery was essential for their economy. Meanwhile, many people in the North believed slavery was morally wrong and should not spread into new territories. As America expanded westward, every new state created the same difficult question: should slavery be allowed there or not? For years, politicians tried to avoid conflict through compromises, but each compromise only delayed the inevitable. America was slowly becoming two different nations. Part 2. Abraham Lincoln's election. Everything changed in November 1860, when Abraham Lincoln won the presidential election. Lincoln was against the expansion of slavery into new territories. Although he did not promise to abolish slavery immediately, many Southern leaders believed his presidency threatened their entire way of life. They feared that if slavery stopped expanding, it would eventually disappear altogether. Just weeks after Lincoln's victory, South Carolina announced that it was leaving the United States. Soon, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Texas, and several other southern states followed. Together they formed a new nation called the Confederate States of America. Jefferson Davis became its president. For the first time in American history, two governments claimed to represent the same country. War was becoming impossible to avoid. Part 3. The beginning of the Civil War. On April 12, 1861, Confederate forces attacked Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor, South Carolina. Cannons fired continuously for more than 30 hours. Although very few people were killed during the attack, it marked the official beginning of the American Civil War. News spread quickly across the country. Thousands of young men volunteered for military service. Most people believed the war would end within a few months. No one imagined it would become one of the bloodiest conflicts in modern history. Part 4. A Nation at War. As the fighting continued, Americans realized this would not be a short war. The First Battle of Bull Run shocked both sides by showing how difficult victory would be. Soon came other major battles like Shiloh, Antietam, Fredericksburg, and Chancellorsville. Each battle became more deadly than the last. The Battle of Antietam remains the bloodiest single day in American history, with more than 22,000 casualties in just one day. Families were torn apart. Some brothers literally fought against each other. Entire communities were divided between loyalty to the Union and support for the Confederacy. At the same time, technology was changing warfare. Rifled muskets could shoot farther and more accurately than older weapons. Powerful artillery destroyed enemy positions from long distances. Railroads moved soldiers and supplies rapidly across the country. Telegraphs allowed commanders to communicate almost instantly. Unfortunately, military tactics had not kept up with these technological advances. Thousands of soldiers continued marching directly into enemy gunfire, leading to enormous casualties. Part 5. The Fight Against Slavery. By 1863, President Lincoln realized the war needed a larger purpose. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation. This historic document declared that enslaved people living in Confederate-controlled territory were free. Although it did not immediately end slavery everywhere, it transformed the Civil War into a fight for human freedom as well as national unity. Thousands of African Americans joined the Union Army. Nearly 180,000 black soldiers served during the war, proving their courage on battlefields across the country. Their contributions played a major role in the Union's eventual victory. Part 6. Gettysburg, the turning point. In July 1863, the armies met at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Over 3 days, approximately 165,000 soldiers fought in one of the largest battles ever held in North America. The battle reached its climax during Pickett's charge. Thousands of Confederate soldiers crossed open fields toward Union defenses. Union artillery and rifle fire devastated the attacking force. The Confederates suffered massive losses. Gettysburg became the turning point of the Civil War. After this defeat, the Confederacy never fully recovered. Several months later, Abraham Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address. Although the speech lasted only about 2 minutes, it became one of the most famous speeches in history. Lincoln reminded Americans that democracy itself was being tested and that the sacrifices of those who died should never be forgotten. Part 7. The Final Campaign. By 1864, Union General Ulysses S. Grant launched continuous attacks against Confederate forces. At the same time, General William Tecumseh Sherman began his famous March to the Sea. His army destroyed railroads, factories, bridges, and military supplies throughout Georgia. The South's economy collapsed. Food became scarce. Many Confederate soldiers were exhausted, hungry, and poorly supplied. General Robert E. Lee knew that continuing the war was becoming impossible. Part 8. The End of the War. On April 9, 1865, General Robert E. Lee surrendered to General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia. The American Civil War was finally over. The Union had been preserved. Later that year, the 13th Amendment permanently abolished slavery throughout the United States. However, the cost of victory was heartbreaking. More than 620,000 soldiers had died. Countless families had lost loved ones. Entire towns and cities lay in ruins. Only 5 days after Lee's surrender, tragedy struck again. President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated while attending a play at Ford's Theater. The nation mourned the man who had guided it through its darkest years. Although the war had ended, rebuilding America would take decades. The Civil War transformed the United States forever. It preserved the Union, ended slavery, strengthened the federal government, and shaped the modern nation that exists today. Even more than 160 years later, its impact can still be seen in American politics, society, and debates about freedom and equality. The American Civil War was not simply a war between North and South. It was the defining moment that decided the future of the United States and changed world history forever.